Canada is imposing new sanctions on 21 officials in Belarus. The sanctions are against people accused of human rights violations in that country. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau also announced new funding for independent journalists in Belarus.
It's important that we continue to stay strong in our promotion of values of democracy, but also protection of individuals who stand up to authoritarian regimes and continue to fight for a better world.
The announcement came as the Prime Minister met with exiled political leader Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya here in Ottawa. She ran against Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko in 2020, taking over her husband's race after he was jailed. Now, the results in Lukashenko's favor were widely seen as rigged and triggered the largest protests in Belarus's history. Lukashenko remains one of Russian President Vladimir Putin's most loyal allies, supporting Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He even met with Putin just last week. Tsikhanouskaya has been leading her party in exile in Lithuania, advocating for support from the international community for both Belarusians and Ukraine in the fight against Russia. Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya joins me here in the studio now. It's good to speak with you. Thank you for taking the time today.
Thank you.
It's been 4 years since the 2020 elections that led to your husband being put in jail and you leaving to go into exile. And you're here, you've just met with the Prime Minister. Why this meeting at this point in time today?
So actually it's my second visit to Ottawa, and it's a good opportunity, first of all, to say huge thank you to Canadian government and Parliament and Canadian people for all the support and solidarity we have been enjoying since 2020 and even before. And of course, it's not just only symbolic visit. We living with some practical issues that we agreed on with government. So first of all, our fight is extremely difficult. We are fighting with the regime, we are fighting with Russian imperialism, we are supporting Ukrainians as much as we can. But no one fight can be won without allies. And Canada truly can be considered as one of our biggest allies. And during this visit, new package of sanctions on Lukashenko's regime have been launched. New package of assistance to democratic movement, to our media, human rights defenders, our NGOs have been launched. And also we are seeking for formalization of relationship with different governments and countries and organizations. And here we launched a strategic consultation group with the Canadian government just for better coordination of our actions. Also, I met Belarusian diaspora here that is rather united here, and also we discussed the problems that Belarus are facing here.
I wonder if I could ask you about the sanctions, but also funding for independent journalists to cover what's happening in your country. There's nearly 5,000 journalists from Belarus who are now in exile. How does this money, this support, how will this help bring about change in your country?
Look, media is extremely important when you are opposing the regime. In Belarus, all the free media have been ruined, liquidated. We don't have free NGOs in Belarus, and media have to broadcast from exile. And we have to remember that Belarusian regime is supported by Putin's propaganda, and we have to counter these propaganda attacks on our countries and actually to the world, and free media is extremely important in these cases. And that's why we have to support investigative journalism. We have to support our journalists on the ground. We still have people, despite of the repressions, who are continuing the activity and on the ground, and we call it like people's journalists who are providing us information.
Right.
And because we see how people can be easily poisoned with propagandistic messages, and we have to explain people about real situation, about support of democratic world to our movement, about Ukraine and other issues. So that's why supporting journalists is extremely important. And as for sanctions, it's I consider it's the most influential instrument to weaken dictators. Sanctions is not silver bullet. but it helps us to deprive regime of resources that they can orient on repression machine.
Well, certainly we've seen sanctions used against Russia since its invasion of Ukraine, and to this point it has not deterred Mr. Putin, and we're seeing in Ukraine they're gaining territory after the counterattack from Ukraine pushed them back, and they're more successfully now getting through the air defense system and taking out the energy grid. How concerned are you about what is happening in Ukraine? If Russian success there, what it could potentially mean for your country?
I have to say that the democratic world has to do everything possible and impossible not to let Russia win this war, because it will be failure of the whole democratic world. Ukrainians are fighting not for their lands, they are defending not their cities, they are defending the very values that democracy is based on. And of course, the situation in Ukraine and in Belarus, they are intertwined. Without free Ukraine, there will be no free Belarus, but also vice versa. Without free, independent and sovereign Belarus, there will be a constant threat to Ukraine and to our Western allies, because Lukashenko is ally to Putin, and he will provide our territories, our infrastructure for Putin when he needs it. So that's why it's important to get Belarus out of this war and out of the claws of Russia. Actually, Ukraine and Belarus, we are facing the same enemy, imperialistic ambitions of Russia. Russia doesn't want our countries to develop as people of our countries want. They perceive us as like naughty children who decided to have their own path of development. We are a European nation. We belong to European family of countries. And Russia say no, and they're dragging us back into these Soviet Union times.
So President Lukashenko, as you say, is one of Vladimir Putin's closest allies. They work together on many things, including what is happening in your country. And you said that changes in Belarus could be a game changer in the Ukraine war to help with Ukraine victory. How does a change in Belarus help the fight in Ukraine?
So first of all, Lukashenko is not the president of Belarus. He's a criminal who seized power back in 2020 and unleashed the most brutal terror modern Belarus faced. So he's illegitimate person. And I think that changes in our country can come much faster than changes to Russia. And we don't have to wait until something happens in Russia that influences the situation in Belarus. No, in Belarus, society is consolidated. Our society is against regime and for Ukraine in this war. And when we, together with our allies, will be able to dismantle the regime, changes in Belarus will cause changes in Russia. I very well remember how in 2020, when our uprising started and prolonged so long time, some kind of uprising took place in Russia. So it changes in Belarus can influence the Russians, to defend their rights. And of course, without our country, it will be very problematic, for Russia to advance in this criminal war against Ukraine. Just remember, first missiles have been launched from our territory, making our country co-aggressor. It was so painful for us that we, very close nation to Ukrainians, became co-aggressor in this war. But it's very important to distinguish Belarusian regime and Belarusian people. It's the regime, who made this, not people. So without Belarusian territory, infrastructure, it will be difficult for Putin to advance. And also this gossips, talks that Russia will dare to attack Western countries.
Right.
If it's so, I truly believe it will not. It might also can happen from Belarus. So we need independent, sovereign, democratic Belarus without Lukashenko, not allow Putin, to threaten free world.
The longer regimes are in place, though, the harder they are to get out. What happens if there isn't the sort of change you're looking for soon? What happens to your country?
It's very difficult to admit, but Lukashenko is selling our country to Russia. They're selling our independence, sovereignty to this huge country. And we actually see the process of creeping occupation of Belarus. Russia interferes in all spheres of our life, in the media, in the military, economy, education. That's very dangerous. We see the process of Russification. We see how Lukashenko, together with Putin, wants to erase everything Belarusian from our land. They want to erase our European history, our European heroes, and it's very dangerous brainwashing, and we have to counter this. So I really, think that Lukashenko might fully sell our country in exchange for a political and economical backup of Putin.
Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, it's always good to speak with you. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.